Browns continuing preparations for Tennessee here in Berea. Let's start with Deshaun Watson. We heard from him here on Thursday, Mary Kay, and one of the things that kind of stood out was him basically saying that not everyone was quite on the same page yet. It's early in the season. Some of these struggles are just because guys are getting used to each other.
Yeah, I think that has something to do with it. I've been saying for a long time that a lot of guys missed most or all of training camp. And I do think there's a little bit of a preseason vibe for some of what's going on with this offense right now. But I also think that Deshaun really needs to be the one to pick up his game more than anything. He's got to stay composed. He's got to protect the football, and he's got to deliver really good footballs to his receivers.
Yeah, and that was certainly a problem on Monday night. Some of the accuracy issues dealing with the pass rush, things like that. And other teams are watching that, and they're ready to get after him until he proves he can handle that again. I did think it was interesting, too, Ashley. He kind of went out of his way to point out some slow starts in Houston, and then they went on runs. And even in 2020, when they didn't have an ideal season, he pointed to that season as well. So there was very clearly a message from Deshaun Watson today.
Yeah, and I mean, at least maybe if you're a fan, that's maybe a silver lining to this, that throughout his career he has had a tendency to start kind of slow. I mean, I do think, for me, where it is mildly concerning is this is a second straight offseason, I think, where we've heard from everyone about how everything's on the same page and how they've done such a great job of developing chemistry. So, obviously, I think that's not as far along as they made it out to be throughout training camp, and they still have a long way to go.
Now, going to the Nick Chubb injury, we didn't hear from Minkah Fitzpatrick, but he did speak in Pittsburgh. I will mention that a few Browns players, Mary Kay, I know you asked them about the hit from Minkah Fitzpatrick. None of them wanted to go as far as to say it was a dirty hit. Jim Schwartz said, hey, it's football. But what did Minkah have to say in addressing the hit on Nick Chubb?
Well, I found out today that Minkah Fitzpatrick, even though he talked to Nick while he was on the cart and told him that the hit was not intentional, he still intends to reach out to Nick. He got his number this week. He plans to call him and check back in with him, see how he's doing, I presume, and wish him well on his surgery and his recovery, and probably reiterate that he meant no harm, that this was not an intentional hit, that he's not a dirty player, and that he respects Nick Chubb's game. So I think this, it should be okay just in terms of how Minkah comes out of this. I think knowing Nick the way that we know Nick, I would have to think that he's more in the camp of this is football. These are the kinds of things that happen in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, and Ashley, I mean, look, a lot of players and even Jim Schwartz said they couldn't even rewatch the play because it was just so ugly, but no one really coming out and just saying they thought Minkah did anything wrong.
Yeah, I think that's telling. Even after the game, I think these are guys, especially the guys we talked to, right, like the Joel Bitonio's of this locker room, who are the locker room leaders, have been around for a while. If they felt like something was there, I think they would have come out and said it by now, either to us or on their social media. It would have been a bigger thing than it ultimately is, I think.
Yeah, we all remember Joel during those joint practices in Philly. He was not shy about speaking out when he thought maybe the Eagles went a little too far a few times. So I think you're right. We probably would have heard something. One more thing. If you've ever stood next to Derrick Henry, he is an enormous human being. I don't know how anyone, even other NFL players, can tackle him. And that is the challenge that the Browns defense faces this week, Mary Kay.
Yeah, they really haven't been tested quite like this yet this season. And this is the new Jim Schwartz defense. They have Dalvin Tomlinson in there. Speaking of running backs, so they've got Dalvin Tomlinson in there. They've got Shelby Harris. They've got Jordan Elliott with another year under his belt, and they've really worked hard to shore up the run defense. And this will be a great week to test it out.
And, of course, the thing with the Titans can still get you with even Ryan Tannehill at age, whatever he is, 75 or something. He can still hit those play-action passes. So you gear up to stop Derrick Henry, and then they can go over the top to one of those receivers.
Yeah, I do think this is a really interesting test in terms of have the Browns solved a lot of their 2022 problems, because teams last year were just running all over them. I wrote about this today, how Jim Schwartz said they need to keep Derrick Henry on I-90 and not let him get to I-71, meaning north-south. They want him moving east to west and not up and down the field on them. But we saw teams do this back and forth with the Browns all last year. Really good passing offenses, running the ball, and then vice versa. So I think it's a really interesting test, especially for this interior D-line and this run defense overall.
Yeah, I-71. Stop at Grandpa's Cheese Barn, by the way, Derek. If you do get on I-71 on Sunday, make a stop there. All right, we'll cover everything that happened today leading up to the game on Sunday. It's all at cleveland.com/Browns.